Welcome to Soul Care, a time in your week to pause and think about life. I wonder if you know someone who has a real purpose in life, a real mission, a driving purpose. I know a woman who has a postcard writing campaign that she orchestrates for the whole city, where people can come to her porch and pick up postcards to send to encourage voting and to support particular issues around the country that are timely. I did some writing of postcards in Spanish that were addressed to Spanish speaking people in Texas last fall. These were people who had not yet registered to vote. And my postcard wrote a script that I was given, encouraging them to look into their voting registration and to register because they would indeed want their voice to be heard. It was a passion for this woman to orchestrate this, and I participated, but I would never have done it on my own. I needed someone who was really driven with that purpose. I am fortunate to know many ministers and helping professionals whose purpose in life is really to be of service to others. This is driving. It drives people to study a particular profession and then to perform it. And it's wonderful to be around people who find their lives to be meaningful. I know someone who's taken up horseback riding in retirement. I know someone who's resumed painting after a long hiatus. These are passions that have been exciting to pick up. During the pandemic, some people have started new regimes of exercise or diet. They've developed a hobby. This has become exciting, something to think about. We can find ourselves sometimes needing a purpose, finding ourselves kind of in the humdrum doldrums of feeling like, well, week after week, year after year, what's new? You may feel that there's sort of nothing exciting in your life anymore. And if you have a real setback, like an illness or a major loss in your life, then you particularly may feel like you're not going anywhere. You're not moving forward. You're healing, but you need a new direction in order to really step up to life again. People came to Jesus searching for meaning in their lives, and they expressed that lack of meaning in different ways. Here's one story in Mark chapter 10. We often call it the story of the rich young ruler. As Jesus was setting out on a journey, a man ran up and knelt before him and asked him, "Good teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life?" Jesus said to him, "Why do you call me good? No one is good but God alone. You know the commandments. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness. You shall not defraud. Honor your father and mother." He said to him, "Teacher, I have kept all these since my youth." Jesus, looking at him, loved him and said, "You lack one thing. Go, sell what you own, and give the money to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Then come, follow me." When he heard this, he was shocked and went away grieving, for he had many possessions. Did the man find meaning in his encounter with Jesus? Not really, not at that moment at least. He was at the point of wanting to talk about his issue. He sought Jesus out. He wanted someone to listen to him, perhaps, maybe he even wanted to vent or complain, but he wasn't ready for what Jesus had to say. Jesus said, "You lack one thing." What was that? It was a mission, a purpose, something beyond himself. Then Jesus spelled out for him a purpose, Sell what you own and give the money to the poor, then come and follow me. Well, you might say, no wonder the man went away grieving. He had many possessions, and Jesus was asking him to do an about face with his life. It was too much, away from materialism and toward discipleship. That was simply too much for the man. But the idea is, what is Jesus really saying? Find a purpose greater than yourself. Give up something, take on something else, and move forward. When we know that something is missing, we can talk about it. We can search for something more in life. Well, where do we go to search for this kind of meaning anyway? The expert on the subject of finding meaning in life is a man named Viktor Frankl. He was a Viennese psychiatrist in the 20th century. Quite famous, actually. I had the honor of knowing Viktor Frankl because my father studied with him for 1 year in Vienna when I was in 6th grade. Our family went to Austria, and my dad spent every day with this psychiatrist in the Polyclinic in Vienna, where he was training students in his theory of logotherapy. Well, Frankl wrote the book Man's Search for Meaning, which is what made him famous. It's a classic in psychology classes. Frankl had a thesis that we find meaning and purpose in life in one of three ways: through love, through work, and through suffering. Surprising, you might not think of suffering as a way to find meaning in life. But he developed this theory and approach to helping patients called logotherapy, meaning therapy, out of his own life experience in 3 concentration camps during World War II. Frankl was a Jew, and he was imprisoned. His wife and parents and siblings were all murdered in the camps. He survived by finding a purpose. For himself, it was to write a book, which he wrote on tiny pieces of paper in his pockets over the years he was imprisoned, and to apply the teachings of his book in person to other inmates by helping them find meaning in their lives, even in the suffering they were enduring. So these are the 3 areas: love, work, and suffering. Frankl thought of his wife and his love for her when he had to endure the worst suffering himself, like marches in the cold. He thought about his wife. The thought of love carried him over the difficult days. And work, he applied his life teachings as a psychiatrist to helping inmates. He took it on as volunteer work. He became the doctor in the barracks, not just the doctor of the body, but the doctor of the soul, helping people endure, helping them think of other things to get them by, helping them to understand new meaning. And the 3rd area is suffering. Frankl taught the inmates that though they were in a horrible circumstance of suffering, the circumstances which they couldn't change, the one thing they could keep control of was their attitude toward the suffering. And so he helped them develop an attitude of hope, an attitude of faith. And many, many people went to their deaths, the Jews in line on their way to the gas chambers, reciting the Shema, the great prayer of the Hebrew Bible. One God to serve, the allegiance to believe in one God. This was the great commandment. Well, we find meaning in life when we name something greater than ourselves to be our purpose. I wonder what you would ask Jesus if you had a chance to. If you were feeling low, would you ask for a new direction in life? What's missing, do you think, in your life? Well, now at the end of this sheltering in place time, people are having choices. People are beginning to choose what to do with their time again, now that we are freer to make more decisions. The choices we make will determine a direction. Now, some of us want to go back to the same things we were doing and we're looking forward to that, and that's fine. But some people are finding that they've changed during this time. And in fact, they want to have a more introspective, quiet, peaceful life. And so this might be a time to choose not to do everything that they had been previously engaged with. They might instead want to take on a spiritual discipline like reading or walking or yoga, something that brings personal peace and serenity. Maybe we really want to change something else about our lives previously, like maybe we want to change our friendships to some extent. Maybe there's someone that you've never really spent time with that you've always admired, someone you'd like to become a friend with, perhaps someone who needs a friend. You might choose to focus more time with that new person, get to know the person, give of yourself, share your life stories, and invite the same. Or maybe there's something you've always wanted to do. You've always wanted to do it, a place you've wanted to visit, a skill you wanted to learn, whatever it might be. Is this the time for that? You have some choice. If you have something missing in a love relationship, what can you do to make things better? Perhaps just by starting the conversation. I'd really like to feel closer to you. That might be the beginning of something new in that relationship. Or maybe you have something missing in your work life. What can you do about it? Can you maybe talk to your boss or to a coworker? Would you consider actually retraining for a different position? Perhaps your work is volunteer work or work in the home. Is it bringing you joy? If not, what can you do about it? Is there something that you have a choice about? Even if you can't change your situation, maybe you can change your attitude about it. For instance, you might have to keep your job, even though you don't enjoy it. Your family depends on that income. So your family becomes your purpose, a positive purpose. Rather than complaining about your job, perhaps you can say, I'm so glad to have a job because my family needs me. That becomes a positive aspect of meaning for you. And if you have something missing in your life because of suffering due to illness or some great loss, can you come to terms with that suffering and realize that it can actually bring you a degree of meaning? I said to a man recently widowed, by your wife dying first, you gave your wife a gift. She didn't have to live alone without you. Some idea like this can give your suffering new meaning. My hope for you is that when you find yourself at loose ends, missing a purpose in life, you'll think about these areas of love, work, and suffering, and see whether something appeals to you in reframing your thinking. We can always reframe a life circumstance, put a new parameter around it, a new way of thinking of our situation. Often we can't change a lot, but we can put a new frame on our lives, and that frame is a new take, a new purpose, a new attitude. I hope this will help. Stay well, and I hope it is well with your soul.